style is I'm a spiritualist, I'm a metaphysician at heart. So that's in contrast to a scholar. I say I'm not a scholar, but I'm scholastic enough to find the truth. Because scholars, they'll come up with the facts, but the facts doesn't necessarily mean that you have the truth, right? You could be in court and somebody could comprise the facts in a way to make an innocent person seem guilty. So just because you have the facts doesn't mean you have the truth. So a spiritualist and a metaphysician always seeks the essence of the truth that appears to be what the facts are. So scholars, they observe, they understand like science. And scholars, they don't leave room for spirit. They don't leave room for intuition. They don't leave room for original thought. With scholars, you could say something, they be like, where'd you get that from? You know, like far as they're concerned, you can't think of original thought, and everything that you say or posit has to come from somebody who already thought it before you. So they're just sitting in these circles just all saying the same thing, and there's no room for any growth. So now, as a spiritualist, as a metaphysician, we come from the internal side, and our experience is our methodology. So when we do ritual, we do prayer, all of those things are our methodology. When we live according to the cycle, that's how we come with an authoritative stance on why we say something is true, as opposed to a scholar is coming from the outside. They're coming from what you would consider an uninitiated perspective, while the spiritualist is coming from the internal. And our job is to bring together the duality and come back to unity, and bring the balance between what you observe with your physical eyes and confirm it with what you experience from an internal perspective. Y'all get that? So when we say why we're Kemetic, that's like a loaded question. You have to ask yourself, why are you seeking to be Kemetic? That's the real question. Why are you seeking to be Kemetic? Because there's a lot of paths around. There's a lot of cultures around. Now we have to understand cultures are codes. And these codes consist of protocols on which the culture is deemed to be vitally important. So there's traditions that say you got to feed the ancestors. And that will be traditions like Paulo. They deal with the ancestors and spirits, which we consider to be lower spirits, respectfully. There's people say you got to deal with the deities, and that will be considered a Risha lifestyle. And then people say you got to deal with just God. So now, thankfully, in the Kemetic path, we feed the ancestors, we deal with the deities, and we deal with the God. So now in our tradition, the Kemetic tradition, why it's special is we say the code or the protocol is about self-actualization. What does it mean by self-actualization? We're talking about enlightenment and empowerment. That's what self-actualization means from our perspective. It's about enlightenment, and then it's about empowerment. When we say enlightenment, we're talking about true knowledge of self, not the melanated self, not the, black man is original man, mother, father, civilization, God is unity. You know, we got all that, but we were something before we were even that. So we're something that actually is higher and more profound than that. This is just a powerful instrument in which the spirit uses to manifest on this dimension, but we're not this vehicle, just like you're not your car. Your car holds pieces of your personality. You get in it, it smells like you, and the stuff you left around, and you could actually speak to your car, and if you respond and you build a relationship, but that car still, in its essence, is not you. It's just a vehicle that you use to get from place to place, destination to destination. So empowerment, enlightenment is about knowledge of self, meaning also knowledge of self, meaning you're a divine being in the flesh. Enlightenment meaning you're a divine being in the flesh. So you have knowledge of true self, so therefore you recognize yourself as a divine being in the flesh. Now, empowerment is about demonstrating your divinity. So those are the two things that's the crux of the whole Kemetic tradition, realizing that your divinity in the flesh and showing and proving by demonstrating your divinity. So we say empowerment. Empowerment would be hekau. Can anybody tell me a definition of what they think or what they understand Hekau to be. Trey, you want to give it a shot? She's like, oh, he calling people. He know me. Yeah.
Hekau, words of power.
Words of power. Anybody else? Do everybody agree? Is that what you came up with? That is words of power.
True.
So that's the classic textbook definition from the scholars. So now, from a spiritualist perspective, Hekau would be spiritual authority. Because the word Hekau don't actually mean words of power. It's just a symbol that represents the glyphs that make up that is 2 arms and a twisted rope. So neither one of them have anything to do with words, but it's loosely translated as words of power, but it actually means spiritual authority. So Hekau is about demonstrating your spiritual authority. So as a divine being, your charge in this world is to demonstrate your spiritual authority. But it's still words of power. So don't let me get you into thinking it's not that. I'm just expanding on what that actually means. So words in themselves, it means nothing. It's the emotive power behind the words that give the words power. So it is your mental posture that you have when you're saying the words that make your words of power. Y'all get it? So it is your visualization with the words. So when you're aligning yourself with a deity or a deity principle, that is your mental posture. So now that takes regular words that mean nothing and you're impregnating them with your emotive power. And that's the thing that makes it words of power. So now there's 2 types of words of power. There's words that mean things and there are words that do things. Words that mean things and the words that do things. So words that do things could be sometimes considered unintelligible. Is what a lot of times white folks look at our tradition when they see us wilding out in the church and we talking in tongues. Those are words that do things, but they don't necessarily mean so. Mama say, mama, something. They be like, what the heck is going on? But it's clearly they're in some type of zone, and those words are allowing them to have some level of spiritual power or authority. So now a scholar will be looking like it's nonsense because what do those words even mean? They're making it seem like a word has to mean something in order to do something. I could say stop, and then I could say stop. 2 different effects. You know what I'm saying? Because you can do it with children. You can say stop and it don't mean anything, and then you can say it in a certain mood and it means everything. So all that's to say, back to the Kemetic thing about is representing enlightenment, or what I say, self-actualization. The symbol for self-actualization in our tradition is the sun. The sun is Atikra. Just about everything in our tradition revolves around that sun philosophy. So that sun represents self-actualization and the unlimited ability to achieve. So everything with dealing with the sun represents that, whether it's Haru, whether it's Ra, or anything dealing with that sun symbol. You've seen the sun symbol with the rays coming from it and extends into arms. So all the sun imagery in Kemet is about the journey of self-actualization and all the challenges that come with it. So all the stories of the Neteru, all of those are about self-actualization and all the challenges that comprise that path. For instance, you got the story of Haru and Satesh. Remember, that was a physical battle, right? They was going through it, they was throwing crap and pulling out each other's testicles, and that's just interesting from our perspective. That's the origin of martial arts. You know, Shaolin martial arts starts with animal forms and stuff like that. So Haru and Satesh had I think it was either 72-day or 72-year battle, and they was shifting animal forms fighting. Because you'll see a form of Haru. He has his falcon head, and he's standing on top of a hippopotamus steering it. So those are just signs, once again, going back to your mental posture. So your mental, your state of mind could influence what it is that you did physically. So Haru represents a physical battle when the poisoning could be trying to affect you from the outside. Now, have you all heard of the story of Offset? And she, Ra had got bitten by a scorpion and he was about to die. And he asked Offset for help, and she was like, "Only if you give me your secret name." And he had to give Offset his secret name because she wanted Haru to have the power to be the leader or the king. So now that's the poisoning that happens from the inside. Sometimes you could be on this path and you don't want to have to give a damn about nobody else. You want to just kind of do your own thing for purposes yourself. So all the deities in the stories are used to show us ourselves, not that the deities actually did these things. The deities are said to be personifications of our character. So sometimes our character is flawed. So we start off perfect, but we develop these imperfections over the course of time, so that this journey is about enlightenment and the challenges that come with it, whether it's coming from the inside, whether from the outside. Yeah, I understand?
Sure.
So, you got the slide?
You ready?
Yeah. So why we're Kemetic? Why we're Kemetic is about resonance. So, I ain't even on. So this is on resonance. I feel like that's the presentation. Yeah, so find the right follow the resonance. So what does the word resonance mean? We'll just keep the conversation going. What's y'all understanding to resonate? Inside. So break the word down. So we be wordsmiths in this tradition. What are the two words that make up resonance? Is what? Resonate. Resonate. What you say? Resonate. Go deep. So you break it down as re. What does re mean when you see that R? Okay. And son, what is that sona? Sound. To repeat sound. But it's on the screen right here. We're drawn to the legacy on the metaphysical level, even when we don't understand it. Jung's concept of the collective unconscious. Resonance comes from the Latin resonare, which means to resound. To resound means to reverberate. Verb is to do, and action repeatedly. Vibrate is a rapid back and forth movement. So pretty much you came to the legacy because you've experienced it before. So something within close proximity, something that you're familiar with, kind of like the concepts of soulmates. So there's really soul groups, and you could meet different beings of your soul group, but there's not like two people just came into existence for the purpose of just constantly just doing that thing. It's a soul group. That's why we say collective unconsciousness. So y'all heard me speak. I said about where spirit. I come from a spiritualist perspective in the metaphysics perspective. Now let's look at the word metaphysics. What does metaphysics mean? What's the general definition of metaphysics? Huh? Metaphor. He said metaphor, which I said. Anybody online you want to build on what is metaphysics? What is the general meaning of metaphysics?
Beyond the physical.
Beyond the physical. There you go. Why does it mean that? So break the word down. Meta means beyond, and then you have physics.
Physics, which is physical.
So that word metaphysics is a Greek word. So that concept came from Greek thought. So when they say metaphysics or beyond the physics, they're not necessarily talking about just the physical plane. That would be too easy. They're talking about beyond physics. Physics is a whole, a science. So does anybody know the basic principles of physics? It's four basic principles of.
I know, I feel like.
It's the elements, but it's specific. It's four. It has a foundation of four. You say you're a science major? You're a science major too?
Biology.
Okay. Anybody online know the four basic principles of physics? Don't be looking online either. Say that again.
Newton's law, like,
So it's strong force, weak force, magnetism, and gravity. Anybody need me to repeat that online? Because it's not on the slide. So strong force, weak force, magnetism, and gravity. So four is Ma'at. So this is pretty much the principle of yin and yang. You have strong force in your body, weak forces in your body. You have magnetism. Everybody talks about magnetism, charisma, and you have gravity. How you bring it all down, bring it and put it all together. So Ma'at is our concept of yin and yang. So in yin and yang, you have that circle, and one side is what color? And the other side is what color? And inside the black is what color, and inside the white is. So we're talking about transmutation. So that means the dark is always transmuting the light, and the light is always transmuting the dark. So that's Ma'at force. So Ma'at represents 7 cardinal virtues. What are those? What are those? Let's come up with 7. Truth is one. I'll give you justice in second. I don't know. Let them get that. Harmony is 3. Trey, give me 4. Give me number 4, Trey.
Reciprocity.
Reciprocity. We're going to Von Sill, give me the 5th one. What you got?
So my apologies. I'm not really hearing because this is extra noise, but I don't know what was said. I just heard reciprocity, but I know it's truth, justice, reciprocity, order.
I think you're lying because you heard all that. You said you didn't hear it.
I didn't.
No. But you did. No, I'm saying, I'm just playing. What are you hearing?
It's like this clicking noise, and it's like, oh, now it's not going right. So I don't know.
Hear it now?
Everybody.
Oh, okay.
But
okay.
Somebody just unmuted and their background voice to create feedback.
Oh, okay.
I was hearing it.
Okay, so let's start it. You said what?
Righteousness.
Hold up. We got to start again from the top. You said what?
Did I say truth or justice?
She said truth. You said what? What was yours?
No, you said truth.
All right,
you said justice.
I said
harmony. You
And then righteousness.
all right, we have 5. Righteousness is 5. So Von Sill give us number 6.
So you said truth, justice, righteousness, harmony, balance.
Balance 6, and somebody do 7. Who else is online? Tuesday. Tuesday, give us the 7th one.
Reciprocity.
You said Jesus?
I said reciprocity.
Okay, reciprocity. All right, yeah, so that's truth, justice, righteousness, harmony, order, balance, reciprocity. So we could sum all of that up to represent integrity.
Mm-hmm.
In our text, it said, let thy name be the embodiment of every good law. Laws are principles that govern. So now it's a Kemetic proverb. It says, organization is impossible unless those who know the law first establish it. So we're not talking about the more science, simple approach to law when they're playing with ordinances and statutes and stuff. When we're talking about universal law, when the enlightened ones base human laws based off of cosmic laws. So when you base your human laws based off of cosmic laws, now you have the template for power in an enlightened society. It said, let your name be the embodiment of every good law. So we're talking about having a good reputation. Part of having a good reputation is about consistency, constancy, like a law, like a principle of nature. So Ma'at represents integrity and integration, mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, cosmically. So Ma'at represents balanced integration. So there are signs and symptoms of integration, meaning alignment, pretty much. If we don't like that word integration, we sensitive, certain words be triggering us. I don't like that word. We use alignment. So the signs and symptoms of alignment is your mere presence inspires these three things. The first is peace. Your very presence inspires peace. Second, fearful respect. Not that you're trying to inspire fear. That means when you come in the place where you settle, people tend to straighten up around you because they don't want you to seeing that you don't want them, or they don't want you seeing their lower quality. So they tend to bring their vibration up to meet you instead of expecting you to come down to their level. Kind of like, like if you've been brought up half decent, kind of how you get around your parents. You don't just loosely be cursing and stuff around your parents and stuff like that. And third is empowerment, meaning you inspire people to feel like they can do anything just by your mere presence and the quality of your conversation.
These three things are because of your presence?
Those are signs and symptoms of that you're in alignment. Integrated. She probably likes the word integrated, but so we talk about Ma'at. So that you're Ma'ating in your persona. You inspire peace, fearful respect, and empowerment. It was interesting. Himad was telling me about a conversation that was happening online that got fueled because of what people interpret the word netter to mean, what some people say, as nobody says it's God, but we use the word God to speak to whatever level of consciousness most people consider that higher power God. We go through this all the time. Netter is everything that you can perceive and everything what cannot perceive, everything yet no way. Yeah, so how do you discuss something that's nothing? So we got to speak in generalities and let our intuition guide us through the conversation. So we can't be pontificating and trolling over words. And at the same time, we speak in English. So like if you don't speak a fluent African language, if we're not speaking fluently in African language, then we have to use English as the medium to express thought and understanding that we're spiritual beings having a human experience. So there's a unseen side of us that's communing, that we're all perceiving and intuiting the deeper meaning of the words that's being said. We understand we're not limited by words, but my point is the conversation went left because these were scholars talking. And one side understood why we use God to speak to people who don't understand. That's like, because you don't want to be discussing the whole universe in a day every time you have a comment. Oh, we don't say God because now you got to go 10 minutes on why you didn't say God, and now you got to go back to your point, and it's just taking too long. And that's why conscious people have a reputation of running their dang mouth too much, because we be trying to discuss too much. Real spiritual people, we kiss. We say keep it simple, stupid. So you speak to the level of the people at the time. So now when you're with scholars, the scholars could talk about it on the level that they talk about it. But when we're speaking to lay people, like, yeah, it's God. Just like Allah is God, just like Yahweh is God. And yet in all them traditions, they call God something different. And each one of those traditions, they'll say God is not that either. Like a Muslim will say Allah. They don't even really be saying God too much. They'll say Allah. And the way they say Allah, they'll make you think they're talking about a different God than a Jew is speaking. And they're all coming from the same Judeo-Christian teachings, yet Allah is still that same deity in the Old Testament. But when you listen to a Muslim, you will think it's not, So there's powers in names and stuff like that, but sometimes language and words we use become a distraction. Now we're not even speaking the truth. Now we're not getting our message across because we're trolling over words. So anyway, one of the scholars just got irate and he started cussing and stuff because he was actually getting mad because, you know, people still use the word God and stuff. And he said, there is no God in there. Just what he said, they elements. He said it's the period. He said it's the elements of the periodic. So now you're getting too deep for your own good. He's like elements of the periodic. So like, but so why are people praying to the periodic table? You know, because you got to ask those questions. Or when you're looking at the Kemetic text, you're gonna find a bunch of prayers. So if our ancestors thought it was just a periodic table and they were elements, how do you pray to the periodic table? And how does the periodic table respond back? And if it's responding back and you praying to it, then that makes it a God. That qualifies it as a God and not just this abstract element. So if it's, anyway, he got irate and he was saying he believes in Ma'at is what guides him. I like that you cussing and you got no cool and no cool in the conversation. And he was an elder. And he was just irate about it. And, you know, you could just tell by how people typing that they're yelling, that they're in their feelings and stuff like that. So the point I'm going back to is Ma'at. It talks about integration and alignment and what your presence does in the situation, even with you not having to say anything. So if he was really Ma'atic, if that was really his tradition, he wouldn't have been the one to break code. He would have just brought wisdom. And then the wisdom he'd have brought would have inspired them not to use the word God no more. And they'd be like, I'm saying nothing from now on or whatever. So the point is, a lot of people are hiding behind high concepts like Ma'at, and they're nowhere near it. So that's why I opened the lesson like this, like why we're Kemetic, because Kemet has the codes of everything we need to be. It's going to empower you for everything you need to be and everything that you're ever going to become. So you need a religion or spirituality that has the images that's powerful enough to get you where it is that you need to be doing. There's a lot of traditions around. And remember, we're spiritual beings having a human experience. So don't get into the DNA thing that tries to lock you into certain people and places entirely. Because what happens if you get locked into a certain people and place and they wasn't about nothing? What happens if you get locked into the people that was putting the plates in their lip, and then you be like, why was they doing that? You know, it's like, I'm not putting no plate in my lip and such and such. You know, so every culture on the continent is not glorious. So you don't want to just stick to just the DNA thing. We come from a perspective that we're light beings, we're cosmic beings. So you need a religion, you need a way of life that can encapsulate that. And that could get you there, that has the protocols that's instructive that could get you there. And that's why you had the sun disk coming down with the rays that terminate in Ankh. So it's the sun that gives life-giving rays to the people. So you mimic that on the physical plane with your culture. That's why you always need the chief, the king, and the queen. They represent that sun principle that's giving the instructive laws that guide and nurture the society. So it's the as above, so below. So when you got the as above, so below, that's ultimately the feng shui of the universe. So the deities, the ancestors and stuff could really work, or else you just putting up walls and you just spouting platitudes. Yeah, now we can get back into the lesson. Go back real quick. What was the last sentence? Vibrate is a rapid back and forth movement, and Metanetza vibration is the symbol for water. All right. That's the Metanetza glyph for water. So it looks like a sound vibration, right? But water also ripples like that also. That's the letter N. In Metanetza, it will be more like, Everybody say that? So it'd be more, instead of, you know, we approach Metanetza like English thinkers, so we say Nefer when it will probably be more like Unfer or Nafir. It will be more like Na. Go to the next one. Resonance, resound, reverberate, all begin with Re. Re. Some people say Ra is Re. The prefix for repetition, repeat. To repeat something, you had to have done it before or been exposed to it. This is reminiscent of the Kemetic principle of reincarnation. See, reincarnation, repeat incarnation. In Meronetta, that's called Wekam Onk. Can y'all say that? Wekam Mesu is the second one. Repeating birth or repeating life. So reincarnation, carnal is flesh or reinfleshment. So that's showing they saw themselves as spiritual beings first, and the flesh was just a vehicle. So it's a reinfleshment. Carnival is the celebration of the flesh. Okay. I think I just said that. This means that existence is more than just life as we presently know it, since reincarnation means repeating flesh life. Fleshly life. Go back. You had a question or he's going too fast?
Yeah, I agree with that question. Is that like why people say like, oh, you have a multiple like that?
Yeah.
Like, because you experience like multiple times and stuff?
Yes. Protect. I pressed this button. Did I turn it off?
No.
Technically, everyone is an old soul. There's no such thing as a new soul. So we've all been in existence since the beginning of existence. You just don't remember. Some people come with a more, I wouldn't even say a conscious memory of it. It's just more active in their DNA. So they come through moving like they've been here before. And some people come with like their memory totally wiped and they're just like babes. So you could say someone that's like the special needs children. That could come from environmental factors, especially nowadays. It could come from many things, but traditionally, like it could come from you just evolving up the evolutionary ladder, and the human experience is just new to you. So you're not coming with fully developed faculties and things like that. Say you had a cat and it's time for your cat to evolve in consciousness, it might come through as a special needs child, which requires love. So the love that you give that child is actually evolving it and nurturing it, and the next time it comes on another level up. That make any sense? Yeah. Okay. The sound Re draws us to Re. A sun ray is a radiant emanation from the sun. Ra is the consciousness of the cosmos. We are all light beings, Ra peaks, duplicates of Ra, emanations from the sun. So that's a metaphor of us being light beings. We're children of Ra, so we're light beings. But yeah, you need to check with them. Y'all still taking notes on it? Y'all online, we y'all good, or am I moving too fast, or need me to repeat anything? Because I can't see y'all at this point. Okay. Now we go. The differences within us are due to our personalities. The words persona is broken into two words, per, meaning each or person, and sona takes us back to sound, which takes us back to resonare. We are vibrational beings of energy and light. Meronetta for personality is Ren. Y'all say that? Ren. Which means name. Our name expresses aspects and characteristics of our personality. Remember, Tatiana, we was talking about that earlier about, remember I asked you the meaning of your name and we expounded on it and how it makes total sense why that's your name now. So that your name is a receptacle of your persona. So even though we have English names, sometimes you do the research on your name and you be like, oh, that was on point. My mother probably didn't know any better, but spirit is God in this whole thing, and spirit can only use what it's working with. How was she supposed to know Meronetta? How was she supposed to know any of the African languages? So they picked the language that they were speaking from. And I like to believe most parents try to give their children noble names. It's rare that you got a name that doesn't mean anything. Sometimes they try to pick it from a sound. Sometimes they actually get bold and do the Ebonics name. Your name is Shamika, you know, like, because they was trying to make it sound cultural. And then if you do the etymology on that, you might could pull some type of meaning from it even then, because remember, names are just sounds. There's only so many sounds that you can make. It could be like ah, ba, ka, what we say with the na, and things like that. So all names are just combinations of just several different sounds, no matter what culture. All right, go ahead. And metadata Ren is written using R. That's the mouth. That, see, that thing looks like a cigar. Whatever, that's the mouth glyph. What is the mouth? It transmutes sound and creates vibration through chewing food. Then you have the na with the which takes us to our emotions, our feelings, and the way things resonate or the sound within you. The water being an aspect of ourselves takes us to the original concept of the noon. Have y'all heard of what the noon is? Do y'all know what the noon is? Anybody online, do you know what the noon is?
The noon is from where everything emanates.
Exactly, the noon. Go ahead.
That's everything emerged from the noon.
Everything merged from the noon. Remember, in the Bible, they say in the beginning, the creator was amongst water.
Mm-hmm.
That's the noon. The noon represents infinite potentiality. So that's the chaos that they're talking about, infinite. So it ain't chaos how we understand chaos. Mean you're all over the place. There's no order. It's just mean order of another level that you might can't perceive. So we'll say it is infinite potentiality. So from the potentiality came actualization. So you have potentiality, then there's actualization. Ra came forth from the noon. So actualization from potentiality. So you should never be good with just when somebody say, yo, you got potential, and you don't. That means you ain't doing nothing. It's just sitting. It's dormant. You need to actualize that potential. When you actualize the potential, that's what they call talent and skill. So the water being aspects of ourselves takes us to the original concept of noon, the state of infinite potentiality. Water's properties are mutable. This means that we are each an expression of the noon's possibilities, because the noon water can take infinite shapes and be changed in innumerable ways. The all is within us and exists as us. So see that wave of water right there that we say is like equivalent to the sound wave. So each one of us is equivalent to a wave or ripple in the noon. So your name, your personality is a wave in the noon of this sea, but we're all from that same essence. Okay. The transmigration of the souls indicates that our souls/spirits have moved through several bodies, generations, and time periods. This means that the ancestors are we and we are they. We are here simply continuing where we left off. The question is, when and where did you leave off? So now that's a I wouldn't say a warning. It's just a mental marker not to get caught up in the past life experience. Because when you get caught up in who you was the last lifetime, you're making a mistake into thinking that's who you really were, as though you're not who you are this time. You'd be like, I need to know who I was last time. You're like, that wasn't you either. Because in that last lifetime, you were something before that lifetime. Remember, you're spiritual beings having a human experience. So you should never get too tied up into your personality. So you're just passing through. So you're here now. So your whole existence is supposed to be paying attention to who and what you are now. And you're going to need all that energy.
Sorry.
She has a question. Okay.
Is it like how like people were saying like I know there's like people say like the Akashic records, and how like if you like meditate deep enough or if you have some type of special reading, you just have this stable practice life in the past.
Yeah. We call it the Sashadic record. Sasha is a deity who keeps records. That's their original mate to Jehuti. You know, Jehuti is usually paired, but Ma'at, he was paired with Sasha first. So Jehuti is wisdom, so there's wisdom and memory. You know, that's the metaphor for that. So, Yeah, but everything, every experience, every word is recorded in that Sashadic record. So that's why we have to be responsible with our words and our thoughts and our emotions. So you can't really take it back once it's out your mouth. You know, and put it out there in the universe. So that we need to be responsible and careful before something leaves our mouths. And even then, you're still thinking it. It's all transmitting things. So we've gone back to why people do some of this crazy stuff that they do. It's all out there. So sometimes you just open and you don't know why you do what you do, because for whatever reason, you could just be open to something that's just a frequency out there. And our job is to master our device. And you should be in control of what comes in or what goes out. It's a hard path. Like, it's simple, but it's hard. It's simple, but you need discipline. And our people hate that word. That discipline is a trigger for people. Discipline means slavery down there to people. Like, we so tired of being slaves to the point where I feel like we done made some subconscious pact that we're not going to be disciplined. Be like, I'm free now. I ain't got to do nothing. When in reality, you're hanging yourself with the illusion of freedom, because freedom actually is born from discipline. So when you see somebody with a drinking and smoking problem, they think they're free when they're actually a prisoner to the drinking and smoking. So while us, you'd be like, yeah, I can drink and smoke. I choose not to. That's freedom. When you say I do it because I want to, or I don't do it because I don't want to, that's freedom. So in order to directly reduce or neutralize negative mescanet, one must detox on the cellular and the metaphysical level. This is why fasting, prayer, and meditation are integral to our culture. Meditation is the art of self-observation, tracing the thoughts to the emotions behind it. Meditation should be combined with breathing techniques to oxygenate the cells, providing nutrients while eliminating bacteria. Fasting opens the way to confront your emotional self. If you're eating for psychological, emotional issues, you will discover this. So meditation is quieting the mind. So what happens is, through the process of meditation, you see thoughts at the beginning, thoughts just going through, and they start slowing down. Then they get slower and slower. And it's going to take you to the origin of where all the thoughts is coming from. Most people just don't have the patience for that process. So meditation really don't start to like pretty much 15 minutes into what you think you're doing is meditation. So most people usually quit before they actually get to the meditation. They be like, I got to go to work, or my leg hurt, or something. You know, they'll make some, the lower self will always create some excuse to stop you from getting there. They call that the monkey mind in martial arts. Like, your goal is to subdue the monkey mind. It's interesting, one of Jehuti's, his older image is the baboon. That's the monkey. In order to access wisdom, you're going to have to deal with that baboon. That's the monkey mind. Shaquem was like, damn, that's deep, brother. He hit me with the
The baboon was wisdom.
Okay.
That's arguably that's absolutely a representative of the baboon.
Okay.
Just in the similar way that he behaves and all of that, like the tricks that were just the playful element where like you don't even realize that there is wisdom in his joke. Or you understand what I'm saying? Going back to the
Yeah.
Can you go back to that last sentence? The last part. What you can't see, it says you will discover this through not reading. Okay, gotcha. I don't know why it's not showing.
Everybody good online? Thumbs up. They gave the thumbs up.
Mm-hmm.
All right. All you experience is imprinted on your DNA through your Sashadic records. We were just talking about that. See, Tatiana always be ahead of herself, asking questions out of line. No. Sashat is the first consort of Jehuti, who is responsible for measuring and architecture. Sashat is a female manifestation that's Naturit, or Netzeret, with a 7-petal flower on her head, representing the 7 chakras of the body. She measures the tonality to discover what is needed to center and maintain the balance. I hear people say that that's a weed plant on top of her head. I'm just like,
I always hear
I don't know what's the cultural reference for it. Like,
Nothing about the shot that was like there's nothing about her qualities that would make you true.
Okay. The ultimate reality, Haru consciousness. Haru is represented by the falcon who flies the highest and alone, meaning this is still a personal journey that we're all on. Even though we're coming together as a community, you're going to have to walk it alone in your own way. Or the teachings are going to mean something different to each one of us because we're all at different phases of our journey. So the falcon can look at the sun directly, indicating direct experience of the truth. And that's what we're all searching, to directly experience the truth, not just to study it. The scholars are content with just studying what they think is the truth when they're really just compounding facts. Truth must be experienced. You can't study it. Haru means light. It means day. And it means that which is above. So it means the light which is above. So it means the light of higher consciousness. You see how the language works? So if I was a scholar, no, it just means light. No, it means day. It means that which is, it means the spiritualists, it means all of that. It means that the light, the higher self, the light of that which is above. And they'd be like, oh, but how did you come up with that? You know, through living it. Remember, the code is in living it. You're never going to, I don't care what tradition you study, all the answers are not going to be in the books. You're going to have to sit at the feet of the masters at one point or another. He is the light of higher consciousness, as Haru is the earthly manifestation of Ra, therefore experiencing cosmic consciousness in the flesh. Remember, that's being Kemetic. It answers existential questions, and that existential question is, who am I and why am I here? What's my purpose? The purpose is to experience cosmic consciousness in the flesh. The Creator is experiencing its creation through us. So if God exists within you as you, that's how God knows your thoughts. In the Quran, it says Allah is closer to you than your own Adam's apple. So that means it's inside you. It's in your cells. Your cells are motivated or stimulated through light. Light is photons. The sun is the master of life on earth. The sun stimulates all life on earth. The sun stimulates your melanin. When that light hits your skin in the morning, your body automatically starts producing serotonin. That's a chemical in your brain that causes you to be awake. Melatonin is what it releases at night. So after 6 p.m. in the night or after sunset, your body starts releasing melatonin. That's why you start calming down. So that represents the right and left eyes of Haru. So one is the eye of the day and one is the eye of the night. So both of them are still consciousness. One is light, daylight consciousness, and one is nighttime consciousness. And remember, the in Haru means coming forth into the light from the night.
So this is where they get Jesus.
He going there to Jesus. Yeah. So now that's what this class is supposed to get into. That, like, but remember, I'm a spiritualist and metaphysician. I hate talking about that Jesus stuff. Sometimes we spend so much talking about what Kemet. We talk about so much about what we're not that we fail to define what we are. You know, so I'm just equaling out the equation and showing this is what it is. This is who we are. We kind of know that side of the conversation. I'll get into it, but y'all didn't join the class to hear about a bunch of stuff y'all already heard before. You know, you wanted it from a fresh perspective, and that's what I'm trying to do. So yes, Haru, to be fair, this Jesus thing that everybody's talking about, he's a composite of Haru and Asar. There's certain aspects that's unique to the Asarian story. To say Asar is Jesus and Haru to represent Jesus too. Because now I understand Jesus said When you see me, you what? Nah, you getting deep. You too deep for it. He said, when you see me, you see yourself. And he said, no, when you see me, you see the Father. No one can come to the Father but by me. That's equivalent in our tradition when we say Amen Ra. So Amen Ra is the hidden aspect to it. Amen means hidden. It means the hidden aspect. So Amen is the energy that, the consciousness that gives the sun its permission to shine. So the sun is actually Aten Ra. So when we say Amen Ra, we're talking about the creator of the unseen and the creator of the seen. So if we say Heru is the earthly manifestation of Ra, so you can't get to the Father, the hidden, but through contemplating the sun. You see what? Y'all get it, right? The pun on S-U-N and S-O-N. Okay. So what is DNA? DNA is deoxyribonol. The part of the cell that converts food to a usable form of energy. The part of the cell that converts food to a usable form of energy, which is interesting because melanin does that also. Melanin is what you call a transducer of light. What does transduce mean? Break it down. Transcend or transition. And what is deuce? Subtract. So transition and subtract. So it's a form of stepping down. So melanin steps down light into a usable form of energy. That makes sense? It's like a transformer in the house. A transformer pretty much is taking cosmic energy and using it to transform it into electricity. No one knows where electricity comes from. We just got these devices that's able to channel this thing that we're calling electricity. So melanin does that with light. It takes light and transduces it into usable form of energy. It could be in the form of nutrition. It could be, that's why Black folks dance better than white folks, because we're transducing energy. So we're actually intuiting it on a level before it actually manifests in our body, because we have melanin and a body. White folks don't have the same type of melanin, so they literally got to wait to actually feel the vibration in their body. By the time that happens, they're off a beat. You know, while we're intuiting before it comes to the body, and they're looking at us like, what is the beat on the one, the two? Is it 3/4 of a beat or is it a quarter? And we'd be like, I don't know nothing about no 3/4 and a quarter of the beat. Just the bass. You don't feel the bass. All right. What are X and Y chromosomes? Well, first of all, we said DNA is the language of life. All human beings have 23 chromosomes. And Peyton ain't taking no notes tonight. That's deep. He's like, it's recorded. They ain't taking no notes. The notes are distracting. DNA is the language of life. We have 23 chromosomes, which makes up the body's past, present, and future. 22 contains autosomal DNA. That's from your parents. And your 23rd chromosome determines your gender. And that contains your mitochondrial DNA. That's what you get from your mother. And then your Y DNA is what you get from your father. So to understand, we have to understand the trunks of our DNA, the roots of our DNA are called haplogroups. Haplogroups is your blood groups. No, it's not on the slide. This is freestyle. So your haplogroups is your blood group, where you come from. It's talking about the people you're related to. That's in science, they would call that haplogroups. But we understand it to be translated as blood groups, your tribe. All people can trace their material ancestry or their maternal ancestry back to one of 26 core mitochondrial DNA groups. And all men could trace their ancestry back to one of 20 major Y haplogroups. And all these go back 200,000 years. So the X chromosome, the mitochondrial DNA, goes back 200,000 years. In the male, the Y mitochondrial DNA goes back 140,000 years. For whatever reason, and they haven't found out why the Y chromosome or the Y DNA is unstable. That's why they haven't found it gone. But it doesn't mean the woman is first. Most likely they both came at the same time. But because the X is a little bit more stable, it'll always look like the woman existed first. So all men could trace theirs back to 20 groups, and the women could trace the X chromosome and the mitochondrial DNA to 26 groups. Over the time, each group formed further subgroups, sub-tribes. Remember, like Smytawi started 20-something years ago in Brooklyn. Now it's formed Saruj Tawi, us, so we will be a subgroup of Baba Haru or whatever. And our expression looks different than his expression of it. So I'm explaining how, like, humanity and genetics vary from the core 200,000 years ago. So 200,000 years ago is approximately when human Homo sapien came on the scene. Before that, it was a different type of human being. It was Homo erectus. And before that, it was a different type of human being. So when we talk about 200,000 years ago, that's not the origin of man per se. It's the origin of this, us in this form with the brain we have now. That's what we're concerned with. So, yeah, so they formed subgroups called subclades. That's the original produced sub-tribes called subclades. By tracing which haplogroup you belong to, you can trace it further to which sub-branch, subclade, your haplogroup you belong to through subclade analysis. Now, when it comes to the mitochondrial DNA, they're labeled with the letter L, like put down L0, L1, L2, L3, L4, and L5. Those of you taking notes, write that down. That's the mitochondrial DNA. It's called L. L0, L1, L2, L3, L4, and L5. Now, 200,000 years ago, all of the L's stayed in Africa. A lot of them actually perished. Only L3 left Africa and went into Southern Arabia in that Palestine area. And they turned into a subclade. What's a subclade? No, that's not a, it is a haplogroup, but what's a subclade? The word sub means what?
Okay.
Under. So it's a variation of the original.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much a child. So each tribe spawned another tribe. So like in West Africa, they all know that everybody's related. And they be like, they know, since they know their history, they know at what point in time that the tribe separated and you became another village. So several generations down the line, you might look different, and some of the culture that you do look different. You'll look distinct, and certain things will be distinct from the original group. So what I'm saying is L3 left Africa and went on to become subclades M, N, and R. And those are what you call the Arab peoples and the Black Arabs. So now the Y DNA started with A. So A0 and A1. Remember, it's not as stable as the mitochondrial DNA. So not to say that it's only coming down to these two. It probably was more, but this is all that they have on record. So it's A0 and A1 and B also. A0, A1, and B. So now all the A0 and A1 stayed in Africa. And B gave birth to C. So B would be the grandson. So now understand when we say these A's, these B's, all these letters, just consider them tribes. They're different groups of people. Just so you don't get lost. So I'm just trying to tell a loose story on how the genetic diversity kind of happened on the planet. So we got B and we got C. They're brothers. They're grandsons of A0 and A1. C gave birth to CT. That's a tribe. And also he gave birth to CF. So you gotta kind of create a pyramid chart, like a tree of life type of thing. CT gave birth to DE and another CT. And I told you about CF. CF went on to populate Asia, Australia, Europe, and in America. So we got CT who gave birth to DE and CT. Then they had their great grands turn into group D and E. Now E will say D went on to Southern Asia. We talk about Southeast Asia, they're dark melanated people. And they went on to marry the daughters M, N, and R. And who was M, N, and R again? From L. Remember L3. L3 went into Southern Arabia. So D intermingled with M, N, and R. I know it sounds weird to y'all online. It's probably worked better with a chart. And the sons of E actually mixed with M, N, and R, but they went back to Africa where they nearly took over, replacing many of their cousins who remain in Africa. So pretty much they left, became these dark Arabs, came lighter and lighter, and then they came back into Africa and dominated the people that was there the whole time. So technically, everybody is African. Everybody is mutated versions of African. So what happens is we get into, it's almost saying like, remember, that is everything that we can perceive and everything that we cannot perceive, everything yet no thing. So no one's looking like the original no more. Everything is coming from the genetic diversity of Africa. So even the Arabs who you don't think is African because they don't look like they're African now, remember, because they come from a subclade, they come from a different tribe. And remember, different environment, different diet, different weather changes things over the course of time. So they're still African, so they're coming back and they're dominating the people that was there already. So split groups cause genetic changes. That's what I just said. Those are called mutations in science. So mutations from their parent groups. So the haplogroups are the parent groups. The subclades are the mutations. Hundreds of splits over the past 2,000 years leaves new lineages and dozens of even more subclades. So today is 26 major mtDNA families and 18 Y-DNA lineages. After 200,000 years of splitting new lineages, there are now dozens of new subgroups. Geneticists now use numbers and additional letters to identify them. So you hear words these days talk about E1B1A, RB1A. So those are the new additions to all the things, because we're still divided into subclades and stuff like that.
This is the answer.
Yeah, Ancestry.com. Yeah, they study the subclades. Yeah. Yeah. So all our DNA is going to either come from Africa or from, since the female, because that's where they're getting it mainly from, the female, the Y-DNA. So it's going to determine whether you were really from Africa more directly, or you could have came from the M, N, and R. You're like, damn, my mother's from Scandinavia, So that's when it was going in different parts. Once again, we wasn't just traveling just to travel. Remember, there was several ice ages. Mm-hmm. So after ice ages, some of us got caught in certain parts of the planet, and that's where the mutations started happening. So now after the last ice age was about approximately 12,000 years ago. So why we're Kemetic is based off of how civilization developed after that last ice age 12,000 years ago. So life proliferated in a enlightened manner from the Nile Valley, and then from the rest of the world from there. But it started from the south. Kind of like us up here, like Our ancestry, we come from the south and we came up north. So Africa is the same thing. So civilization started from the south and it headed up north to what we call Ethiopia or Kush. The real name for Ethiopia is Kush or Kosh. Ethiopia is a Greek word. It means burnt faces, Ethiops. But the real name is Kush or Kosh. Then it went left, and then it went slightly west into what's known as Nabta Playa. That's present-day Sudan or Nubia. That was approximately 10,000 BC, 6 to 10,000 BC. And there they found petroglyphs of the Ankh, petroglyphs of the Ra glyph, petroglyphs of Heru. So this is even before it got to Kemet. So by the time it got to Kemet, it was already a developed culture. So nothing started in Kemet. Kemet was the mouthpiece of the whole civilization since the Ice Age coming back into existence, restoring pretty much the planet back into balance. So from Nabta Playa, then around 4240 BC, it comes up into Kemet proper. Kemet is known as Tamerdi, the beloved land, the beloved two lands. So Kemet is called the jewel of the Nile. The jewel of the Nile, a jewel comes from millions of years of evolution. So they already knew that they were like the last phase of something, several cultures before them that was known as the Kushite kingdom. Kemet is a colony of Kush, meaning the colony of Ethiopia. So it wasn't just its own thing. They didn't just come up out of nowhere. So the Europeans make it seem like they just came out of nowhere. Fools up here talking about the aliens taught them, because they don't want to give it to the African culture. They'd rather say aliens taught African people than to say that we figured it out on our own. And we figured it out before we even got to Ethiopia. Remember, it came from the South Africa. So it was already worked out. So the whole Kemetic culture was identical to ancient Kushite culture, like even in certain depictions, you'll see the Kushites and the Kemites interacting with each other, and the Kushites are more, they have what we call traditional African features compared to the Kemites. So that would be the difference. The Kemites would be like the African Americans, and the Kushites would be like our continental Africans. They didn't mix, and the people in the South didn't mix, while the people up north mixed. And that's why we get into this conversation. People be thinking the Kemites wasn't black because look, the Nubians are black. That's really black. The Kemites are something. So that's like saying just because you don't got big lips and a thick nose, you're not black. And that's like saying that white folks are the origin of thin lips and thin nose. They're not the origin of that. Remember, we just got through the genetic diversity of Africa. So none of that originates with them. They're just degenerated versions of the original. So if anything, the Kemites were a degenerated version of the great Kushite kingdom. They wasn't even the best manifestation of it. They were just another incarnation of it. So what I was saying, like if you go to Anthony Browder's book, The Nile Valley Contribution, he has the pictures of what a Nubian looked like. And they dress exactly like the Kemites. They just were darker and they had twisted locked hair. The Kemites were a little bit lighter, but the clothes that they wore were exactly the same. The only difference is the Kemites wore white and the Kushites wore like an off-white. But they all rocked the leopard skin and everything is the same. They got it from the tombs of one of the Ramses. He got it clearly like in his books. So in that, like there was several invasions of Kemet over the course of time, and every time there was an invasion, our people broke west. Because now we got to explain. Because people say, y'all fools ain't Egyptians, y'all West Africans. But West Africans are not ancient. They wasn't always there. So you got to understand, we're one of the Persian invasion that happened in approximately 500 BC. Now we have to understand what was happening on the planet 500 BC. Remember I said every time people invaded, what did the Kemites do? They moved west or south or out, meaning they all didn't break camp. There was just a movement that was going south, west, north, whatever. So now what happened 500 BC, between 500 and 700 BC, all of a sudden Buddhism comes on the scene, 500 BC. All of a sudden Taoism comes on the scene, 500 BC. All of a sudden, Confucianism comes. Ain't that weird? Like all of a sudden, out the blue, same birthday, all these that's corresponding to migrations out of Kemet. What else outside of all of a sudden 500 to 700 BC? Ghana comes on the scene. The kingdoms of Ghana and West Africa come on the scene. They don't go too. You ain't gonna find too much going on in that area over 700 BC. So what else? Tibetan Buddhism. So they was all up in Asia, you know. So we was just breaking out, and everywhere we was deciding to set our feet, we was enlightening the people, which were our people. Remember, is genetic diversity. So we was just reestablishing the culture. Also, the Dogon say they come from Kemet. And they'll tell you what dynasty they come from and stuff like that. So all, like if you really study Eva say that what's the guy name? The patriarch of that whole tradition, they say he came from the East. Damn, what is his name? It starts with a O. I forgot. Whatever, the patriarch of that tradition, they say he was the king. Nah, that's God. That's the creator. And this was a person.
Ogatameli? Is it Ogatameli you're talking about?
Now you talking about the Dogon.
Oh, yeah.
Ogatameli was the priest that pretty much was informing the white folks what that tradition is and where it came from. But there's a figure, I don't know if he's considered mythological or real, but the progenitor of the Yoruba tradition or the Yoruba people was said to come from the East. So he don't even come from West Africa. He said the East. So according to what Babylao you talk to, they'll say he came from Kemet. Another Babylao might say he came from Israel or whatever, but the point is it came from the East to the West. It wasn't a tradition. They weren't the people that started over in West Africa. And the people from Ghana, specifically the Akan and the Awe people, say they come from Kemet. So here you got these fools trying to tell us to be West African, and the West Africans say they come from Kemet anyway. Because it's true, because once again, after the Ice Age, civilization proliferated from the Nile Valley, because that's where all the damn food was. You go where the food was, you go where the food and the resources, where there wasn't resources in other parts of the planet. So from North, South, East, and West Africa migrated to Nile Valley. So now remember, there was 42 different nomes, 42 different cities. And now you're starting to understand why they call Kemet Upper Kemet and Lower Kemet. Those almost like two different cultures. So the people from up north and up south almost spoke different languages. Did y'all know that? Now, how we know that is why we got the title Nasut Bidi. Nasut Bidi means the double king. It means the king. Remember, so Sut is the word for the king of the south. Bit is the word for the king of the north. So the Bit is the word for king up north. Sut is the word for king of the south. So when that person got that title and brought together the two lands, he became the king. The double king. I'm the king up north and I'm the king to the south. So that's letting you know there was two different dialects being spoken. So really the word Sut or Nasut is comes from the glyphs, the sedge and the bee. The bee is the totem from the north, and the sedge is a plant from the south. So it means he who is from the south and he who is from the north. More specific, like if you had to give the exact definition of the word Nasut Bidi, it means he who is of the south and he who is of the north. And he was known as Neb Sematawi, meaning the master who unites the two lands. And that was a powerful thing. So you had to be a powerful person that, you know, internally to carry that weight, to be like, yo, y'all knock it off up north, get down to lay down. So 4240 was approximately the first dynasty. Y'all know who the first king of Kemet was? Y'all need to know this because who? No, she got scared. She took it back. Like, so you know, if George Washington is the first, I was about to say king of America, the first, I had to catch myself, president of the United States, then us as Kemites, we got to know who the first king is, right? That makes...
Nama.
Who was that online?
Nama. Narmer.
Yeah, Narmer. Narmer.
Yeah.
Narmer. Narmer. Okay. Him had said that's the next class I'm giving y'all too much.
I mean, you can keep going, just will cover it again.
Okay. Where was I even going with that? Tatiana made me lose my thought. She always asking questions in the middle. Yeah, so Narmer was the first king. So there was this thing called the Narmer palette. So interesting that if you look it up on your own, if you look up the Narmer's palette, Narmer was beheading cats. Like it has a story on how he established the king. So that means this is a lesson we got to learn even in our own community. Everybody ain't going to be down with it. At some point, it might have to be a get down or lay down. So certain cats wasn't trying to lay down, so they got beheaded. So it ain't always a peaceful process. That's all I'm saying. So we got it in our psyche that everybody got to get along. And so we're stuck at this phase like, well, everybody's not getting along and we all ain't agreeing. So at some point in time, somebody's going to be like, yo, this is what it is. Mm-hmm. Damn what you think. This is what it is now. This is what it's got to be. If you don't like it, I got the army. That's why you need armies, to reinforce things. Just on that note, it's going to be a sidebar. Just like we originally called this class "Why We're Not Christian." Then I changed it to "Why We're Kemetic." Remember, I said sometimes we get into so much about what we're not that we forget and fail to determine what we are. Like you ever come across cats in our community that appear to know so much about a lot, but they don't really know anything at all. So they'll be breaking down, the yin and yang comes from such and such and such. So, okay, so what's the Baha'i philosophy? How I live that? And all of a sudden they don't know. Or we're expected to know everything. And we be knowing a lot of stuff. Like if you go to a Buddhist or a Taoist, they don't know half the stuff the average conscious person knows. We be knowing some stuff. Even the lowest level conscious person know more than most people from other traditions. So here I am, this video, and be like, well, it's my like the yin and yang philosophy, and is it like the Buddhist such and such? So you're like, damn, so you want me to know Buddhism and Taoism, but you would never go to a Taoist priest and be like, is the yin and yang like the Mahat philosophy? So we've got to know everything, but they don't got to know everything. And we be using that as some type of qualifier whether we should follow somebody. But my point is, a lot of people leave Christianity and Islam for the wrong reason. There's a difference in what the religion teaches, and there's a difference between the discipline level of its practitioners. So we be judging the religion based off of the discipline or the lack of discipline of its practitioners and swearing that's what the religion is about. And then we go denigrating the religion. Like I'm a student of religion, and all of them is telling you to step up to be something greater than what you are and get your link and your connection back to God. That's what the word religion means, to connect back, to yoke back, to tie back to God, because it's assuming that you're wilding out and you need to be brought back in. Back in the 70s, they said, shoot, man, you better come on in, So that means you're wilding out. You might be sinning. So the point is, I hear people, they be like, I can't condone Christianity because slavery was condoned in the Bible. And my thing is like, see, if we play that game, it's dangerous because every people and every tradition got some dirt under their nails. So if you're going to use stuff like that to decide what you're going to be a part of and what you're not going to be a part of, then you'll be justified in not doing anything. And for instance, us as Black folks in America, we don't have any power. We don't have an army. So we don't like concepts like conquering and slavery. We don't understand it because you don't have power, but we would have a whole different swagging if we had power that the world had happened to recognize, and we'd be like, yo, it is what it is. We coming through. And when you conquer, when you go to war, slavery is a natural byproduct of that. So what I'm saying is slavery was normal for all nations back then. I don't care if it was Kemet, Ethiopia, the Moors, Israelites, whatever. It's a natural byproduct of law. The difference between the cultures is how they treated slaves. So now slavery was considered almost like a gentleman's agreement, like, nigga, law. And I got to do something with these people. So thousands of people might have been killed, and now you got thousands of people misplaced. So now there was the understanding. You serve for a certain period of time. After your period of time is done, you get to either go back or you can marry in or initiate in or integrate in. A lot of times they integrated or married back in. That's how new tribes happen all the time. Now, understand before slavery as we know it, it was already another slavery 1,500 years before white folks were enslaving us. And that came from the Arabs and the Portuguese. So now their form of slavery is totally different than the rest of the world's form of slavery. For instance, in the Akan culture, you could be a slave and you could have high positions in office because your slavery was, once again, a gentleman's agreement. Like, yo, I had a rift with your people back in the day, and my people got to serve for a certain amount of time, but that didn't stop you from prospering in life. So you could hold a high government official position, kind of like in the Bible. Then they said, what is the story about Joseph? Remember, he rose up in the rank and he was damn near the vice president of Kemetic, like, because his skill set, he was honored that much that he was the vice president of Kemetic. So that was the idea of how ancient world politics happened. So when it came to the white folks and the Arabs and the Portuguese, their type of slavery is that they doing some freaky stuff to the women. They're doing the psychological thing. They destroying your name, making you think who you are and where you came from is bad, destroying your history. That's a whole different thing that never existed before. So that's a whole different slavery than the slavery we think slavery is. So we're talking about indentured servitude as opposed to slavery. So what we know is slavery and what our ancestors in the ancient world were doing with indentured servitude. I just need to clarify that because people make judgments. Remember, words are triggers for certain people. So you hear certain words, so, oh, I can't have nothing to do with the Bible. So now, you find out that the Africans had something to do with slavery too. So you're going to disown your people. And now that's why people are doing the indigenous Native American thing we was talking about before, because nobody knows the dirt on them yet. So then what's going to happen 10 years down the line? Oh, I found out that they was just as bad as the white people. Now you lost again, So it's just about understanding the ancient mindset. So you can't take your present mindset and project it on in ancient times and be like, this is what it was to them. Tuesday, are you all right? And Matt said you look like you're confused.
No, I'm not confused. I'm saying.
She about to quit. She's like, I'm joining this fool talking that slavery is good. Bad is good and good is bad. Where am I? Where? All right, go ahead. What was my last point?
Oh, you were saying understanding the ancient mindset. So you were saying, what was it? I think I might have got this. So you were saying like understanding the ancient mindset, but not putting your present mindset on it? Yeah,
not putting your present mind state on the ancient paradigm or way of or worldview. Paradigm is a worldview. It doesn't always mix. Just like how that brother was saying that the net zero are not gods, it's the elemental chart. Like there was no elemental chart back then. So that's a classic example for putting new stuff on the old. All right.
Because we have issues with the concept of God, the modern day concept.
Okay. But anyway, yeah, so Narmer was the first king of Kemet. So he was the first Nasut Bidi. He was the first unifier of the South and North. So there were kings before him, but he was the first double king. So there was kings before him. There was one called the Scorpion King. What's his name? I forgot it. Yeah, the Rock. So there was palace before Narmer's that it had the same history he had or his, but they would just be wearing a white crown. There's something called the KMT. It's the double crown. It's red and it's white. The white crown looks like the bowling pin, and then there's another crown that is red and it got the serpent and the squirrely thing. That's the Nasut Bidi crown. That's the double crown. The white crown is just the crown of the South. The red crown is the crown of the north. So when you got both of them on, you the man, or the woman. All right. What is the Kemetic legacy provides answers to existential questions. What are existential questions? What is the purpose for human life? The answer is under it. We are divine beings having a human experience. The purpose of human life is to become a divine being in the flesh. Everybody needs to know that. So when I ask you, like, everybody has the same purpose, become a divine being in the flesh. So you might be a divine being who happens to be a lawyer, who happens to be a doctor, who happens to be a teacher, but everybody's still striving to be that divine being. So everyone has the same purpose. So don't look for somebody to be like, no, you need to go be a pet coach. That's your purpose in life. You're like, no, your purpose in life is to become an enlightened being. Go ahead. The book of knowing the creations of Ra. Thus it came to pass that the heart, mind, and tongue ruled all the other members through teaching that Ptah/Ra is within everybody. That's K. Remember, the Creator exists within you as you. Remember, as heart, mind, and tongue is within everybody, as heart, mind, and tongue within every mouth as tongue. All of the divine powers of all humankind, of all cattle, all creeping things, and all living things. And he thinks as his heart and mind and commands as the tongue whatever he wishes. This is the beginning, the Creator was in the void. And he brought forth existence through Hekau, words of power. So it's saying you have that same ability. So remember, it exists within as heart and mind. So what you think about and what you vocalize as your words creates your reality. So on the bottom it says, birth of human culture, Hermetica. The earth is kept in order by means of humanity's knowledge. The Hermetica is a text written around the Greek occupation of Kemet. A lot of scholars don't like that. They be like, oh, it's when the Greeks was in, it's Hellenistic or whatever. So that doesn't make any sense because we're African Americans right now. That's almost saying that nothing good could come from African Americans because we speak English and we wear American clothes and stuff like that, when it's really is African Americans that saving African culture. They not the ones writing the books. They not the ones doing the lectures and stuff. We getting all our knowledge of regaining who we are coming from those of us that's considered African American. So with that being said, you can't dismiss something like the Hermetica just because it was written in a certain time. You actually got to embrace the Hermetica because the Hermetica is actually more comprehensive. What happened?
Like a companion book.
Yeah, it could be considered a companion to the Kabbalion. All right. So now what I was saying, I said the Hermetica is more comprehensive than the book of knowing the creations of Ra. Because that gets so deep into Kemetic theology. Because remember, so understand if it was dealing with the Greco-Roman integration period, we thought different at that time. We went from whole brain thinking to more left brain thinking. So we had a left brain approach, meaning we had started explaining stuff. When you go back to the book of knowing the creations of Ra, when you read the the pyramid text, you're like, yo, what the heck is they talking about? I can't make no sense of none of it. That was us in our cultural bag, and we didn't have to explain. We didn't have to explain it. Everybody knew what it was that you was talking about. This is coming from a time when we started mixing with the Greeks. We was a mixed people at that time, and so culture wasn't natural for us at that time, so things needed to be explained. So if you're looking for a deeper explanation of some of the concepts, you read the Hermetica. If you want the pure original form, you go back to the Medonet, to the books of knowing the creations of Ra. But anyway, it says the earth is kept in order by means of humanity's knowledge and application of the arts and sciences. For Atum willed that the universe should not be complete until man has played his part. Remember, we said that your goal is to become a divine being in the flesh. So things were left undone on purpose because we were supposed to figure it out. The man or human beings are the successors of God or Netzer on earth. So that's why they say in the Christian prayer, your kingdom be on earth as it is in heaven. That's part of our charge to establish that divine kingdom on earth as it is in heaven. It goes back to the book of Known Creations of Ra. So we're imitating what the Creator did by creating our reality with our thoughts, our words, and our deeds. Okay, amen. Kemetic proverbs on self-knowledge. The purpose of all human life is to achieve a state of consciousness apart from bodily concerns. So if you tune and get your organs right and you live your life about building, maintaining, and sustaining energy, you can never go wrong. Sin or negativity in your life is when you're not addressing your organs and things properly. When your organs are right, you produce the right hormones, it's easy to stay in a positive frame of mind. Ryu, Impert, Imperu, Imgur. That's pretty much what they're calling the Book of the Dead. That's the original title of that. Ryu means chapters. Ryu, Impert, the chapters of journeying forth, Imhiru, by day, or Imgur. So chapters are coming forth into the light from the darkness. Chapters of coming forth into consciousness from ignorance. You see how there's layers? So it's poetic. So if you don't understand poetry or spoken word, you'd be like, poetry is spoken word is metanetic because they're speaking in symbols and metaphors. So the metaphor is saying one thing, but intuitively you get it. You're like, oh, that double entendre was hot. Like double entendre is the whole science of metanetic. You look at it, you're like, oh, that was hot. He said such and such, but he meant such and such, but it still meant the other thing at the same time. So that's when we say per Imheru, coming forth by day from night, coming forth into consciousness from ignorance or unconsciousness. Not a member in me is without a God. The God Jehudi is protecting my flesh entirely. I am raw every day. So you see that human beings are considered divine. You see now how that same quote wouldn't work if we go with that other brother's definition of the elemental chart. You're like, how do you even say that? Not a member is me without an elemental chart. The elemental chart that's known as Jehuti is protecting my flesh. The elemental chart is protecting you from, like it just gets crazy. So you can't take new current thought and project it on them. You got to learn to get into their frame of mind and understand why they said and did things the way they did. So in that sense, we have a certain understanding what we think God or a God is, or a divine being or a powerful being is. And when you say it that way, that thing makes sense and that sounds empowering. When you say, not a member in me is without a God. That sounds powerful because we understand most people know what God means. So you be like, everything in me is a God. You be like, damn, that's powerful. But it don't got the same ring when you say everything within me is an elemental chart.
Ger or Ger? Ger or Ger?
It's like it's a guttural Ger. So like G and H's are interchangeable with that G and H sound. Just like you'll see Tahuti and Jehuti. It's a TJD sound. We can't even say, our tongues have become so lazy in English we can't say it. That's why you'll see some people say it or write it that way, and some people just go with the easy Tahuti thing. But it's more like Tuti. Most people can't even do that. I can't even Tuti. Or it might have just been Juti. Because remember, they said there was no vowels. We placed the vowels that so our English mind could make some type of sense of how to put in consonants together. But it was probably Juti. Because remember, it's words of power, so Juti. But we talk, we don't speak words of power, so we say Jehuti. That's our English thinking thing. If you listen to African people speak, it's more energetic. They just be going in. They're using their whole being when they talk. And it's, when we get to English, it's this nasally thing. Oh, yeah, I was thinking the other day that, it's just different. Okay. What happens to you after you die? That's it. Go to the next slide real quick. Let's see what's there. All right, go back. So that's the judgment scene. and the one under it is the we are, the boat overall. So that first scene on top, that's the classic judgment scene when you hear about in Revelation. The Father is on the throne, and you got the angel who reading from the book of life to see if you made it or not. They got all that from this scene. So you see the figure in the white that's wearing the white holding Impu's hand? That's the same figure next to Hero. So that means he passed the test. So you got Impu, who is the Impu is what they say, the protector of the dead. Like, we ain't gonna use words like the dead. We'll say ancestors, because this is a living tradition. When you say the dead, that's that Egyptology language, and it's making it seem like this is not a living culture. It's not yours. It's not mine. It's just this abstract culture that we're studying. So we say ancestors. So he's a god of the ancestors. That's why he has his hand. So now jackals live on the edge of the desert. So jackals could function as regular dogs, and they could live in the desert as scavengers too. So that's why the desert represents death. So that's why the jackal represents someone who guides the living, who were once living, into death. He could sustain himself from both worlds. So he's bringing them to the scale. So when you see double jackal, so that's when he's known as Wep Wat, the opener of the way. So he is the opener away from this world into the next world. So the next world is just another kind of life. So death is the birth of another kind of life. So he's bringing them to the scales, the Maka'it. And on top of the scales, you see Ma'at, and y'all probably can't see it small. It's figure Ma'at sitting on top of the scale with the feathers. And what shape is that scale? What image are you saying that she's circling? What shape? What's the?
What you talking about the whole thing?
Yeah, no, it's not. I was just her interpretation. I said, what shape is that?
It looks like a cross.
Exactly. So we say Wep Wat, Impu is the deity of the crossroads. So there's the crossroads, and from this world, the crossing the dimension from this world into the next, and he's the governor of that. So he's weighing the heart against what? Which side? I can't even see that. What is it? That's the heart. And what's that called? They say it's the feather. What's the Kemetic word for that feather? Anybody? Online? No. Starts with an S. Chesseret's supposed to know this. Chesseret, don't you wear one of those in your hair? She's like, I don't know nothing. I'm Helen tonight. I'm being taught all over. I'm going through the whole process again. I don't know nothing. Don't call on me. That's called the. You can talk. We can hear you now. Go ahead.
No, I don't wear one of those in my head, but I wear it when I'm on a ceremony. I use it during a ceremony. And no, I don't know what another name for it.
Okay. So everybody, that's called the Shuti. SHUTI. We'll say the Shuti feather. We call it the Shuti feather. Shuti means light. It's the feather of light. So now you see the double entendre to be light as a feather. You need your heart to be as light as a feather. So technically your heart is being balanced by how light it is or how aligned you are with the light. Remember, we're a light being. Did you come into the other dimension heavy-hearted? So now if you lose, look at that image. What's right before who is that? Or what is that? Okay, almost there, Tatiana.
I don't remember the name, but I remember it was on the template on the community, but it's the one that eats the heart. Like, if you are not like other, it's the monster like that eats you and you'll be able to go cancel.
Yeah, correct. It's the monster that eats your soul if you're not heart, if you're not light as a feather. It's called Amamut. It's a composite of a crocodile, a lion, and a hippopotamus. So what was that? So it represents everything that is because it's abomination. You ain't gonna see that in nature.
Mm-hmm.
So it represents everything that is untransformed in the self. That if you can't transmute and transform, you're gonna stay something that's considered an aberration. Because we're supposed to be light beings, we're supposed to be pure, we're supposed to be holy. So if you come in with a heavy heart, that means you're untransformed, untransmuted. That thing is said to devour. I mean, you just fall back into what's gross, your gross consciousness, and then that means you have to repeat existence.
Is he going to reincarnate or reincarnating? Is it like the reason why like people like come back with like a clean slate, or it doesn't like?
No, she asked, is that why people come back with a clean slate? No, if you're back, you didn't have a clean slate.
Right. Like meaning clean slate as in like start fresh again. But I'm saying like they're not, like they're less awake. Like that.
Being less awake that could be a form of punishment, because that means you haven't learned your lesson.
Yeah.
So the whole point is not dying the second death. That's considered dying the second death. So don't that suck? You die and you about to go in heaven. Oh, nope, you're not ready yet. Then you got to die from that dimension and come back, and possibly not remembering any of the wrong you did the last time. So possibly having to go through that whole thing again. And that's when you get to this point of your existence, like, yo, why my life is so messed up? Why are they rich and how come I don't got no money? That you was probably one of the ones who fell asleep and died the second death, and you don't remember what it is that you did because you're totally justified in whatever it is that you're going through at the current time because you set up the circumstances. So now you start seeing the purpose of human life is become a divine being in the flesh, meaning you have to stay conscious. So when you die, you don't fall asleep in the other dimension. Because what it means, so if you die or you transition without being conscious, you become a ghost. You don't know what you're doing. You up here flickering lights and messing with people, and you at my house, and they be like, "Yo, you heard that?" And so here you are repeating existence, and here you are, you stuck in this dimension, swearing the living people are intruding on your dimension, and you haunting them, and you swearing they haunting you. That sucks. So being a divine being is you want to be as conscious of, as clear in your conscious now, so you walk into that clear. So then you could take full responsibility and accountability for the realities that you created. So, and that's when Jehudi be like, that's when you go through the 42 and he's checking like, yeah, he didn't do sin, yeah, he didn't such and such, yeah, such and such, and then up top is the 42, or what you call the assessor. Sometimes it's 42, sometimes it's 12. Up there, it looks like it's 14, representing the whole lunar cycle from new moon to full moon. So the moon is reflective of the sun, reflective on your life. Did you live an enlightened life? So you see, we move on. He obviously he passed. They never show nobody failing. You don't see the animal devouring anybody. Remember, these are just concepts. These are just symbols. This is just a symbology of what your mind goes through. You assess your life after you die. When people are like, "You almost died," and I saw my whole life flash ahead of me. So when you actually die, you're going to actually see that, Science has its explanation talking about chemicals in the brain or whatever, but it is what it is. You still experience that. It don't matter if you gave it a fancy name, the explanation, a fancy name. This is our ancestors' explanation of that. So he makes it to Haru. So this goes back to what Shaquem said, is Haru Jesus. You cannot come to the Father except through by me. Asar is Haru's father. So you're going to have to go through Haru. He has to take you to the gate. Now, in front of Haru, you see that lotus, and there's 4 beings on there. Who are that? Basil, you know who the 4 are?
No,
What do you say?
no.
Do anybody know who those four beings are?
Yeah.
On the lotus, at the top of the lotus. That's right. Monsieur.
I know they're in the canopic jars. They represent like each parts of the body, like on the inside, like the liver and the heart, and right. I could be wrong.
Yeah, you're correct. That they're known as the Mesu Heru. Mesu Heru means the son of Heru. And she says, like, she was correct there on the canopic jars. They represent the organs, the liver, the lungs, the stomach, the intestine. So they also represent the four directions. But understand, we're talking about Jesiru, meaning a holy life, living a life set apart from what other people in other nations were doing at the time. So we're talking about living a clean life. So this is a way of saying your organs will bear witness against you or for you on that day. So far as living a pure life and not polluting your body and all that, your organs are going to be able to tell that story of that. So check it out. So those are divine beings, but the dark side, the pathology, is demonic beings. So when you living clean, it's the Mesu Heru. When you're not living clean, they're demonic beings. When they're clean and clear, you could hear and experience your ancestors. When they're not clean and clear, that's when you have nightmares. Double-edged sword. So we're talking about power and pathology. The Netru are the power manifestation, so-called demonic beings of the pathology. Pathology means imbalanced perspective of what power is. So when your organs are clean, it's divine. When they're not clean, you experience nightmares and things like that, because those are just a sign that your organs are not in harmony. But you're talking about the lotus. The lotus represents the world. So this is really talking about the four directions. Because what's happening is leading you back to integration with the Father, or integration with the Creator, who represents Asar. So once you become integrated with Asar, so what's that he got on the top of his head? That's not the double crown. That's just one of them. The white crown is called the Hejet. So remember, the first king came from the south. That's the king of the crown of the south. Now on the sides of the crown, you see two things. You see, it's the same thing from the scales. What is that called? On both sides of the crown. What's that called? The Kemetic word. Shuti. They call it the double plumes. That's on Amen's crown. So once you become one with Asar, you become the king, like Heru. And Amen is called the king of the Netru. And Asar corresponds with Ra, so you become Amen, Heru, Ra. Like the chant. And back of them is two beings, that's Offset and that's Nebuhet, representing life and death. So once you become unified with God, you're controller of the world. You transcend life and death. That's why they're supporting him, uplifting him. You master life and death in all directions in the world. Because in the end, there's enough. That's not even the end of the journey in the underworld. That's just one big net. After that, there'll be another picture of Heru emerging from Asar, and they look exactly the same. And he's emerging as the sun. So essentially, you're going back to become a light being. That's the ultimate goal. You're going back to the light. You can go ahead. What's your question?
Oh no, I didn't answer your question.
Oh, okay.
A few slides back, I was wondering like what's the different levels of the afterlife.
Okay. Yeah, that's a whole journey. Okay.
I have a
So-
question. What was the name of the animal that has the head of the crocodile and
Yeah, it's
one
called.
each. What is that?
It's Amamut or Amut. You'll see it spelled Amit or Amamit or Amamut. Those are all variations of it.
Uh-huh.
Amit, that's Ammit, or Amamut, Ammamut.
So,
About 9:30 here.
Kemet says 9:30. Do I want to stop here? We still only halfway through. Y'all got some more in y'all? Or y'all were overload?
overall.
And what she said, that was Chester to overload.
Overload.
Was? Oh, okay. He said after midnight in Ghana, his wife be tired nights. Which she look like online? She sleep.
She's not sleeping.
Ask her.
I'm
Ask her.
still here.
Oh. Okay. So I'll put
I'm
it out.
still
I said,
here.
do y'all want to? So I'll put it out. I said, do y'all want to continue, or we do a part 2 next time? Because I still got more.
Next time.
Okay.
Part 2 next time.
Okay.
They said,
Next time.
all right.
Next time.
Part
Part
two.
two.
Part 2.
I don't worry y'all. All right.
All right, so we'll stop right there. Anybody have any questions about anything we talked about so far?
Him,
Yeah.
was the word you was looking for Oduwa? Adudwa?
Yeah. Do the watch.
Oduwa. And then there's this movie called Little Nicky with Adam Sandler, where he just keeps coming back to Earth every time he dies. Absolutely,
Oh my God.
absolutely hilarious. It's like he can't get it right, and he just keeps coming back to Earth, and then keeps going back to hell, and then keeps coming back to Earth. Hilarious.
There's also a movie with Nicole Kidman. I can't think of the name of it, but she thinks that her house is haunted.
Bedazzled.
Oh yeah, go right, yeah.
Oh,
It's called
God.
Bedazzled.
Yeah, that was really bad. Well, plan to go ahead, Tati. I'm gonna just one. So like, kind of going back a cool while ago, you were talking about like you were talking about minerals, and like some of the and stuff. But I wanted to know, like, in like the Kemetic space, what is the equivalent to like the Holy Trinity? Like, and then like I know there was like some stories are saying like Peru and the star and like that no not that yeah that is the so this is okay that's the Holy Trinity. No.
Yeah, she's asking what's the Kemetic Holy Trinity. And I was saying, in African culture, everything is always about family. So all the deities. So Sekhmet, her is Ptah, and their son is Nefertun. Asara, Set, Peru. So every region they have Holy Trinity. Yeah. Because it's based off of the family. So according to Professor Small, the black family is the image of God. So it's not about the masculine or the feminine, it's the family that's the image.
Asara, Set, and Haru is probably the most popular or the most of the Holy Trinity. Huh.
Everybody online? Y'all good?
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. stand so we can close out.
I'm in wrong. That's dismissal.
I said Rod, let it on.
I'm in wrong. That's dismissal.
I said Rod, let it on.
I'm in wrong. That's dismissal.
I said Rod, let it on.
I'm in wrong. That's dismissal.
I said Rod, let it on.
Do you new Uncle Justin there?
Do you know?
Uncle Johnson.
Hard, brown. Count of three, so I'm out your right foot. Wow. All right.
Before you all log off, I just want to let you guys know Deborah was not here tonight because of a personal family emergency. So please send her some light and some love and just keep her in your prayers so that all things resolve themselves in accordance with the will of Nutter, and just so that she feels that we're thinking about her and wishing her and her family the best during this difficult time. I just want to let y'all know that, that's why she's not with us tonight. She is handling a very serious situation, so we want to just send her some love, okay? And that's it. I know some of y'all have to speak to me on some business matters. Those of y'all online are welcome to text me or email, and those of y'all in the room, we can talk as soon as I hang up the phone. Show me what time.
I was going out. Oh, yeah.